we're going to be talking about personal power and how we can make sure we are living in our personal power. So if we take Maria, for example, Maria was really feeling devastated because she got passed up for a job opportunity. She felt she was well qualified for it, but for whatever reason, the people who were making the decisions just overlooked her and went with someone else for the position. So for Maria, this was devastating. She started to feel discouraged. It was starting to affect her enjoyment of her job. She was starting to affect her self-worth. And ultimately, she knew she was going to need to make a change. So with some meditation on the situation, she realized that she needed to start living in her power. You see, her mind was so focused on what everyone else was thinking and the decisions that everyone else was making that she wasn't taking responsibility for what she could do. And so she started to educate herself and to exercise more and to eat better and to focus on her job and her family and the things that were truly important to her. She started to pour herself into her values, and pouring herself into her values was really pouring herself into herself. Because the values are the self, Maria was showing love to her own self by paying attention to the things that were truly important to her. That was her job, her family, and her health. And so as she focused on her job, her family, and her health, things generally started to improve for her. And it helps her to kind of improve her countenance, her outlook on life. She started to feel better as a result of doing better. She was starting to influence her reality in a positive way. Well, the next time there was an opportunity for promotion, Maria applied for it and she got the promotion. This would not have been possible if Maria had adopted a victim mentality and just said, oh, poor me, it never works out for me, I never win, I never get anything. Then Maria would never win and she would never get anything. She would actually be speaking into existence the very things that she hated by thinking and meditating on what she did not have, putting her mind, focusing the energy of the mind on the lack. But instead, she got into her personal power. And then she started to gain. Dinesh had a similar experience after losing his girlfriend. This was the most devastating thing that had ever happened to Dinesh, and he felt like it was actually his fault. You see, in this situation, he said something that was insensitive, and he had a history of being a bit insensitive to his girlfriend, and his girlfriend would complain about it, and he would say, I'm sorry, and he would say, I'm trying to fix it, and he was working on himself. But this one particular time, he just dropped a comment, said something in such a way that negatively affected his girlfriend, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. His girlfriend looked at him and said, I'm sorry, I cannot do this anymore. And she left him. Dinesh was absolutely devastated. So what did he do? Well, admittedly, at first, it started to affect him negatively. He started looking around for someone to fill the space temporarily in terms of having flings with people that he would find on the internet. He wasn't eating right. He was feeling depressed. He started to drink. But he realized at a certain point, he was not living in his power. He needed to tap into his personal power. And certainly he hoped he could get his girlfriend back, but he couldn't guarantee that. So the more he focused on what he could not guarantee, the more he felt like he was powerless and out of control. But if he would just start to focus on what he could control, then he would start to be able to influence his own reality. And so Dinesh started to work out, and Dinesh started to work on his mental health. And he got with a therapist, and he got with a life coach, and he got with a nutritionist, and he did the work required to become a better person, the work required to feel better, not just look better, to actually be better. As the Nesh was pouring into himself, it started to affect him in many ways. You see, since his health was going well, that improved his status as a personal trainer. And so when people would see how well sculpted he was looking, then more people would want to book with him, and his financial well-being went up as a result. And he wasn't even thinking that he was trying to bring his financial well-being up, but when he focused on the things that were important to him, his values, then his values, which are the self, started to grow, and he started to gain. He needed to live in his power, and he's glad he did, because now he's happily married, but not to the same girl that left him. Unfortunately, he never got her back. But he wouldn't say that's unfortunate, because he's quite happy with who he's with now. What he would say, however, is that he would not have found this mate. He would not have been able to attract this woman if he had not been in his power, if he had not started to focus on his purpose. So I ask you, are you living in your power? Can you tell me for sure, 100%, that you are living in your personal power? What is personal power? Personal power is our own individual ability and capacity to make things happen. It's our own individual capacity and ability to make things happen. You can make things happen. You are a change maker. The first time I learned about personal power was when I was out shopping for suits. I had just gotten a little bit of money, and I was a young man in my 20s, and the first thing I wanted to buy, because I was a minister at the time, was my own tailored suit. And so I went into the suit shop that I had passed so many times in the past before, and I eyed the suits that I wanted. And no sooner did I walk through the front door than a young man was in my face. Is there something I can help you with? I said, no, thank you, not yet. I just walked in the store. Let me take a look around and I'll let you know. And as I was walking around, it just felt like he was hovering. I look over my shoulder, he was right there. He would ask me questions. I felt uncomfortable. Why doesn't this young man just leave me alone? Does he think I'm here to steal a suit? You can't steal a suit. It's too big. So I went upstairs to the next department. He follows me up the stairs. Finally, I gave up. I was discouraged. I can't shop for a suit in this condition, in this situation, with this man just hovering over me, asking me if he can help me at every moment when I haven't even made a decision. I haven't even had a chance to browse for what I wanted. I finally had a little money. I wanted to enjoy my shopping experience. So I went back to the store at a time that I thought he might not be working, and I succeeded. But this time I found an older man who was working. His whole way of greeting me was different. Welcome, he said. Have a look around. Just let me know if there's anything I can help you with. He didn't move from his spot. He even continued talking to who he was actually already talking to. Whew, I could feel the lack of pressure on me. I could finally start to shop for my suits. And as I did, I was starting to enjoy myself. I went upstairs to the department for my size, and I started to find a couple that I was liking. The older man comes up. I started thinking to myself, oh, here we go. It's going to be all in my face. He's going to say, can I help you? What do you need help with? And I'm not going to be ready for all that pressure. The older man walks up to me. He says, are you having a good year? I said, no, thank you. Then wait, what? His question caught me off guard. Am I having a good year? Yeah, actually, finally my business is starting to take off. And I'm here for my first time getting my first tailored suit. I'm really excited about it. From there, we struck up a conversation. He helped me to find two very nice suits for an affordable deal. As I bought the suits, I was checking out. I told the man, I said, I have to tell you, I came here before, but the young guy that was working, he was so in my grill that I felt like I couldn't enjoy my shopping experience. He was just all hovering and it was like he was supervising everything and on top of me. And the man says, yes, he was leading with positional power. The difference in experience is I'm leading with personal power. I had no idea what he was talking about. I said, please explain. He said, yeah, the positional power is where a person has a title, a position, maybe in a company or in government, and they rule from that title or that position. So they're commanding, demanding, they hover. They don't have the qualities necessarily of being a good leader. They're just a leader by position. Could be a boss at work. Probably all of us can think of someone like that. But then he explains someone with personal power, someone who leads from personal power, doesn't rely upon the position that they're in. They're actually coming with the qualities of a good leader, their own compassion, their own empathy, their own relatability. And those are the types of people that others follow. Others like to be around someone who rules with personal power. Well, being a minister, I thought of Jesus right away. Yeah, now here was someone who didn't have like a position, but he comes along and then he's just teaching, but he had the qualities that attracted people. And I thought of all the great teachers over time who, without necessarily having a fancy title or position, they would be able to rule and to lead with personal power, their qualities, their personal abilities and capacities to get things done. And I knew from there I wanted to be someone who led with personal power. Living in your personal power is freeing and empowering. It lets you feel your ability and harness your capacity to change your reality. You can improve your life and the lives of others around you when you have personal power, when you are in your personal power. So take a look at yourself. How do you handle crises and things that come up when there's an injustice? Do you default to victim mentality? A victim mentality is where a person consistently blames others for their problems and their difficulties. They see themselves as powerless to change their circumstances. They feel like they're constantly being mistreated and disadvantaged. They resist taking responsibilities for their own action. They may believe that they have no control over anything that happens to them. A person like that is not in their power. A person like that has developed a victim mentality, and as a result, they're constantly angry, bitter, resentful, sad, unhappy, and they feel powerless. They feel weak. Trauma can cause a person to develop a victim mentality. Don't let it cause you to develop a victim mentality. If it's something you notice in yourself, if you notice that you feel like you have no control over your life and what happens to you, step up and change that. You have influence over what happens to you. There's no person who has complete control over everything in their reality. That's impossible. But there's also no one who has a greater influence over what your life will be like, over your experience than you. You have the greatest influence. over your personal experience, not someone else. And if it feels that way, it may be because you are allowing someone else to have too much influence over your personal experience. The responsibility then lies with you. One way we can influence our own experiences is through our attitudes and our beliefs. This is the way we're thinking and what we believe. Research has shown that if people hold positive attitudes and positive beliefs, they tend to have more positive experiences. People with negative attitudes and negative beliefs tend to have more negative experiences. For instance, if you're approaching a challenging situation with a positive attitude, you're more likely to persevere, overcome, find success. Whereas when you approach it with a negative attitude, you're more likely to give up and to feel discouraged. Another way we affect our own reality and we live in our power is through our actions and our personal choices, our own behavior. They can shape the events and the circumstances around us, right? Because people will react and respond to how we're acting in the first place, right? So when you are behaving in a way where you're coming with the qualities of someone who has personal power, for instance, thinking logically, being calm in a crisis scenario or in a conflict, people respond to that calmness. It's so respectable when someone responds in a calm manner that it's almost fear-inspiring. It almost makes you afraid when it seems like someone could yell and get out of control, but they control themselves and they speak very calmly and deliberately. That's almost frightening, but it's beautiful. Self-control. And by behaving that way, it influences others to respect you. It influences others to respect your words and your decisions, to respect your values and your beliefs. So now you've created a more positive experience for yourself because you're living in a world where people tend to respect you more, all because of the way you carry yourself. That's living in your personal power. It's our responsibility, if we want to live in our power, to set clear boundaries and communicate effectively. We need to set clear boundaries and communicate effectively, especially when it comes to our boundaries. We have to have the skills of assertiveness, that is to speak up and state a fact. That's what assertiveness is. In any situation, we need to have the ability with other people to assert ourselves, to state facts. I'm hungry. That's a fact. I feel uncomfortable with your line of reasoning. That's a fact. I feel uncomfortable with what you're saying. I feel uncomfortable with you staying this long. I have to get to bed now. I need to get going. I can only stay till 5 o'clock. It's asserting facts. Asserting yourself is how we set boundaries. Boundaries are the limitations, the rules that we create. We make them up. The truth of the matter is, you are not powerless. It's quite the opposite. And some of us don't want to face it. Some trauma survivors don't want to face the truth about themselves because the truth is scary. But the truth is this: you were born powerful. You were born a king or a queen on this earth because you were given in your jurisdiction, under your rulership, resources. They are provided to you, for you. They are not for anyone else. It is up to you how you use them. You have the universal right to decide how you will use your resources. Your resources are infinitely valuable. You can't put a price tag on them. Like if I said, how much money do you want for your legs? most people wouldn't sell. Your body is one of your resources. Your time is one of your resources. You are a king or a queen of your resources. Your personal energy is one of your resources. Your abilities, talents, capacities, those are part of your resources. Your beauty is a part of your resources. Your reputation is a part of your resources. That means that other people don't get to tell you when and how and what and where to use them. Hey, I need to go to the store. Can you watch my kid? That is 100% up to you. You do not have to say yes. You're the king and the queen of this. If you're going to use your eyeballs to watch someone's child, it's up to you. That child belongs to them. That's their resources. They have to care for that. Does that make sense? Sometimes we get so enmeshed in family and friendship relationships that we lose track of whose stuff is whose. And we don't realize, oh, wait, this house is my resource, not yours. I can tell you to leave, actually. The car is my resource. I don't have to let you borrow it. That's a kindness. We need to understand what our resources are. We need to understand that we are kings and that we are queens, and we need to step up. We need to carry ourselves as royalty. That's living in your power. Yes, I mean, literally, the way you walk, talk, and the way you sit down, you should do it like you are royalty. It is a mindset. You have to recognize who you truly are. You are a ruler. You are a ruler. And you have the responsibility to enforce boundaries. That's border control. That's 101 of running any country. Any nation has to have some level of border control. Your border control is your boundaries. The boundaries is an outline of the self. That's why we set the limitations. We're letting people know, hey, this is where I stop. This is where I start right here. That's the outline of me. And we have to do this in a metaphysical sense, because it's not always a physical boundary that's being crossed. It's not always them touching the body. Sometimes they're violating one of our values, or asking us to utilize some of our valuables for some purpose that's meaningless to us. We have to set the outline and say, I'm willing to go this far, but then that's where I stop. The rest is not me, so I won't do it. That's living in your power. To do all this, we have to come out of trauma mindset, victim mentality. We got to rise above all of that. We cannot be living by fear anymore. We cannot live according to our emotions. Emotions are a spice of life. They're something that helps us to enjoy and interact with the world around us, to really make our experience robust. It's not meant to be the whole meal. It's just the seasoning on the meal. Our emotions are not meant to lead us. Should not be led by your emotions. Should not be guided by your feelings. You should be informed by your emotions and your feelings. They are like a personal assistant to you. They're just giving you information. Hey, that violates our boundaries. We hate that. Hey, we're feeling good today. They're just letting you know how you feel about certain things. But they don't lead you. So even though the pain may seem intense, or even the joy or the pleasure may seem intense, that cannot be what you make your decisions based on. You need to take in the information. Okay, glad to know this feels good. Or, okay, I see that you're not feeling good right now. And then you, the logical self, the higher mind, the wiser self, needs to make the final call, the decision. There is a hierarchy of the mind, and you are at the top. You're the king, you're the queen, you're the sovereign, you're the ruler. Understanding that you're royalty means that you'll live in your power. So you'll set limitations on people in your life. Some people, boundaries aren't enough. Some people are just toxic. They are so toxic that they negatively affect your mental health just by them being around. What do you do then? Cut them out. Cut them out. You may need to remove yourself, which you always have the right to do. That right is protected by law in every country. Or you may have to ask them to leave, which may not be always as easy. But if it's your space, then it is also protected by law. But we can typically remove ourselves from situations, and we should not hesitate when we recognize that a person is toxic. This doesn't just mean not physically being around them. They can infect you with their toxicity through text message, telephone, voicemail, email. Why? Because their toxicness is in the energy, in the energy form. So they can send the toxic energy in the form of thoughts through an email, through a text message. And they will. Have you ever gotten a message that wrecks your whole emotional system? I have. You get a message that's so frightening, so anxiety inducing. It just, oh my God, I feel horrible. Just one message. They carry energy. Words are ideas. Ideas are energy. They carry energy. They're thoughts. Be careful who you let send energy to your phone. Cut them off. There's block features on every telephone. Use them. If someone is toxic, we need to get them out of our life. It is our responsibility. That's living in our power. Listening to gaslighters, you already know they're a liar. You already know they gaslight, but you're listening to what they say. Oh, my mom says, blah, blah, blah. My dad says that I really need to lose some weight and that it's really my fault that people aren't getting together. If you know that your mom or your dad is a gaslighter, then why are you listening to information that they are giving? If you know that your boyfriend or your ex-boyfriend or your girlfriend or whomever is a liar, then why are you listening to information from them? They're a liar. Typically, living in our power means if we know that someone is a liar, then we will no longer trust information from that person. We will not listen to anything they say. We will not believe anything they say. If we know the person's a liar, then you just stop believing them. And ideally, you would cut them out so you don't have to hear more lies, because lies are toxicity. A person who's in their power removes themselves from these negative influences. We have to recognize that we are in control of our life decisions. We take responsibility for the consequences of the decisions we make, for our choices, for our actions, both positive and negative. A person who's in their personal power understands how to take blame when they should be taking the blame, but how to give credit to others when things go well. But someone who's in their power doesn't blame themselves for things that they shouldn't be blaming themselves for. Some trauma survivors tend to blame themselves too much, take on too much blame, or allow others to blame them. Don't let this go off the deep end. We can take responsibility, but we cannot take all of the blame for situations that are not all our fault. We need balance. We cannot carry around toxic guilt. We shall never accept shame. When you're in your personal power, you know that toxic guilt, shame, unnecessary blame will slow you down. It will weaken you. No powerful person can accept being weakened. Finally, we'll need to be a good, compassionate caregiver. Now, some of us here, these empaths in this room, are saying, compassionate caregiver, that's my specialty. But the person we need to be a compassionate caregiver to is ourselves. Oh, that's my non-specialty. I'm terrible at caring for myself. I have no idea how to love myself. Okay. Well, it breaks down very simply. Take your skills for loving and caring for other people and pretend you have a child that you have to care for. And then recognize that that child that you have to care for is always with you. And that child is you. It's your inner child. All of us have an inner child, and we need to care for that inner child. When we care for ourselves on the same rules that we would care for another person, then we understand the secret of self-love, because it's a really hard concept for trauma survivors to figure out, because we've been going through life not loving ourselves, figuring, hey, that was the way to survive. We may have been taught not to love ourselves. So this concept of loving the self can seem really hard, but we understand how to care for others. So just picture you have a little girl or a little boy next to you. You can give them a little nickname, right? So let's say mine here, I call mine Enroll. Then I advocate for this child, don't I? I protect this child, don't I? I feed this child. I educate this child. I empower this child, don't I? Absolutely. That's how you care for yourself. Feed, cherish, educate yourself. It's not just about making candles, putting candles around your bathtub, and that's the self-care, or going to the spa. That's nice. It's a part of caring for the body, sure, but that's not what self-love is. Self-love comes down to focusing the power of the mind, the energy of the mind, on all the positive qualities, all the benefits of caring for yourself. Focusing on all the positive qualities of the self. I love that I am talented. I love that I am smart. I love that I am alive. I love that I exist, that I have arms. I love that I have shoulders or nostrils. We have something that we can be appreciative for, that we can be grateful for. To self-love is to appreciate all those positive qualities and to care for ourselves the way we would care for another person. This eliminates now the self-abusive talk, saying, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm powerless, I'm never going to make it, I'm never going to find anybody to help me now, I'm never going to be able to find anyone to marry me, I'm never going to. You wouldn't say those things to your child. You're dumb, you're stupid, you're helpless, you're never going to find anyone to love you, you're never going to find anyone to help you, you're never going to find anyone to marry you. That would be verbal abuse if you spoke to your child that way. And most of us would not do that. And since you understand not to do that for your child, don't do it to your inner child. Does that make sense? Someone who's in their power is controlling the way they speak to themselves in their mind. You have to take control of the information center, the brain, and decide what goes in and what comes out. So take care of yourself physically, emotionally, mentally. Be self-willed. When you're in your power, you know how to execute on a vision. You can decide, hey, I would like to clean up my house today, and then you can do it. And if you can do that, then you can say, I would like to purchase a car. I would like to find a job. I would like to start a business. You can hit the bigger goals when you realize how powerful you are. So be in your power. Live in your conscious mind. Let us wake up and not be subconsciously living, brushing our teeth on routine, going to the gym on routine, eating our food on routine, just being dazed out all the time. Wake up. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Is there a better way to do this? Be analytical. That will keep us in our conscious mind. Remember, you were born with authority. You are born powerful. You are born with authority. You have authority. You are a being of authority. We must respect your authority. We must respect your sovereignty, your right to rule yourself. And you must respect it because you're a king or a queen.